So Dave, first, I did a debate with you. At that time, you were pretty set against Trump. What made you vote for Trump in the first place?
Well, there were several factors. I thought, first of all, I should probably make clear that, and this is something that's come up because I've seen the reaction to me saying I regret voting for the guy. I'm a radical libertarian, and I look at voting in a different.
Yeah, you know, I think that the radical libertarian claim, I'm not sure that Dave can really hold on to that for too much longer. He's not really that radical of a libertarian. He's been moving more staunchly towards Christian ethics, and he seems to think that some sort of good central authority is necessary and good. When I talked to him, he said, hey, man, if we can get rid of these riots and you got to send in the military, great. I'm not sure that the radical libertarian label really sits well with Dave anymore. You know, now maybe he still sees himself that way, but I'm not sure that the people who view him are going to see him that way.
Than I think a lot of other people do. I don't look at voting as like a full endorsement of somebody in every position that they have. Libertarians, and I believe we're right about this, we view governments inherently as instruments of tyranny and force. And that doesn't, by the way, I'm not even saying some libertarians might argue, and I would probably agree, that there might be some legitimate functions that could be done by an instrument of tyranny and force. But nonetheless, that is what they are by their very nature. And I think that the people essentially are under duress by their government. And voting, to me, is a strategic option. You could, as Walter Block, who's a libertarian economist, he used the example of if you were in a concentration camp and they gave you a vote over who your guard is going to be. Now, that doesn't mean that you endorse being in a concentration camp or you endorse everything that this guard is going to do. You're simply saying, I think this guard is going to be a little bit more just than that guard is. Now, I supported Donald Trump for several reasons. Number one, I thought that it was very important for the country that the Democrats take a loss. This was, I was very clear on this from the very beginning that I thought this was the most important issue. There was just, the Democrats to me had just gone so far on so many issues, whether it was, even though Republicans were bad, I mean, Democrats.
So what Dave's doing here is he's saying, like, look, I voted for Trump because the Democrats were too extreme. That's basically what this monologue is leading to, right? I voted for Trump not because I didn't foresee that there was a good possibility he would do this, because everybody did, but rather the Democrats are so bad, what choice did we even have?
Lockdowns and vaccine mandates and just the insane COVID hysteria, the insane woke hysteria, which I think was like a neoliberal takeover of the left, and the Democrats were leading the push for that. Then on top of that, there was the war in Ukraine that they went all in on, while the Republicans were at least rhetorically substantially better.
No, they weren't really better. To be honest, they weren't really better.
Then they had a senile president who they lied to the American people and told wasn't senile. Then they tried to,
that's all true. He's right about literally everything he's saying right here. They did lie about Biden being senile. They knew way beforehand that he was, and they knew that his handlers were basically acting as the proxy president of the United States, which is fucking criminal in my opinion. People should actually have been prosecuted over that. The fact that they knew that he was in dereliction of duty because he wasn't all there in his mind, nothing against even Biden. He just wasn't there. And they set up these proxy handlers, and that was only exposed during the debate, is fucking mind-blowing. Lord Inquisitor, coin for your travels an eventual crystal trebuchet. Appreciate that. Very kind of you. Also, I don't know if you're interested in it, but apparently First Amender is live right now doing call-ins, and I care about this. Why? He'll just mute me the whole time.
After denying a primary, after rigging the previous two primaries, they then wouldn't even let you vote on the next substitute candidate. I mean, you know all this stuff, Cenk. So I just thought this was so overwhelming. They needed to lose. I thought it was an incredible blow to the corporate media.
I mean, again, I'm having a struggle disagreeing with most of this. This seems pretty factual to me. And right in line with what I think a lot of Americans were thinking.
one that they'll never recover from was Donald Trump winning a second time and kind of the podcast scene ushering him in. So I thought there were lots of cultural issues and bigger issues for the country. I felt like Donald Trump winning would be better than Kamala Harris winning. And then on top of that, I guess I reserved a little bit of hope that, hey, things looked a little bit different. He had Tulsi Gabbard and Bobby Kennedy and you know, a lot of these different figures. Tucker Carlson had some influence on him, who's really great on a lot of the foreign policy issues. And Joe Rogan helped get him into the White House. Maybe he could have some influence. There was just, it seemed to me that there were more possibilities with Donald Trump for something positive happen. And I would also add, he had been burned by the system in a unique way. And I thought maybe he would be a little bit different this time around. And also,
well, I mean, you could easily just point this out. I mean, you don't even have to go on such a long, elongated explanation. You just point out in very simple terms, what was the alternative? There wasn't one. There was no alternative to Trump. There just wasn't. And that's that. You guys ask why you vote for him? What's the alternative? Harris? What a fucking nightmare.
So he had been totally betrayed by Netanyahu after that, when Netanyahu came out and congratulated Joe Biden for winning the election before our media was even calling the election for Joe Biden. So anyway, I thought maybe there's a shot he'd be a little bit better. And I thought with all the factors, I put in on, I'm going to support this guy.
Yeah, so look, there's plenty that I disagree with you on that analysis, and there's plenty I agree with you on that analysis. The Democrats did lie to the country. Joe Biden was too old, and it was absurd. Corporate media did lie, and corporate media, I love that they were defeated. That's why that tweet that people found to be controversial, I was not 1% happy that
the thing about Cenk that drives me insane is, you know, when you can look into his little fucking beady ass eyes, and you know that he's basically about to lie through his teeth to you. You can just tell. You can tell that this guy is a disingenuous fuck, and I loathe his whole no, you know, I'm here for the common man shtick. I'm here for the common guy, you know, who's getting really fucked by the NGOs and this. That's all bullshit. That's all an appeal to get the working class on his side. He's as much the fucking scumbag Democrat that he's always been.
That Donald Trump won. But I said after that he won, we were out of the establishment prison and in the populous woods. And I prefer to be in the populous woods than in the establishment prison. And that prison was set by corporate media, mainstream media. It's
the same corporate media and mainstream media who called J6 an insurrection that you completely backed and said that they deserve to go to prison, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's like, dude, this guy always wants to have his cake and eat it too. He always wants to have his cake and eat it. Dude, pick a fucking lane, chunk. Cenk Uygur is, yeah, I know. Et
cetera. And so now there's a jailbreak. And that's why we're in the conversation we are about Iran. They say, of course you have to go to war with Iran. Who do you think you are? You know, if Israel commands us to go, you must go, right? But now independent media is saying no, and that's what we're united about. That's what we're going to get to in a second. But you did mention one thing there that I drew my interest. Super quick, because I really want to talk about the war. But radical libertarian don't like the militarization, worried about the tyranny of government, et cetera. So are you opposed to the Marines in LA?
Well, I mean, you know, no, I think that's a little bit different of a question.
And he goes right into this, right? So he's like, oh, I'm for the populace, everyman, this and that. And he moves right into, Orange Man bad because he sent, by the way, this was the debate I was having with the Digital Gnosis yesterday that he got stomped on because he doesn't know anything about civics or how any of this works. But Cenk immediately moving into this. Why? Because, of course, he wants to paint Trump as an authoritarian fascist leader. The governor there didn't even want the Marines, and he sent him in anyway. Well, next time, do your fucking job. Do your fucking job, and they won't have to send the Marines in. But unfortunately for Cenk, we here at The Crucible covered all of that from day one, every single night, and then made sure you had additional coverage after that. We sent you over to Rob Knorr. Every place it was going on, we watched, and we know that those cops were given orders to stand down. You could see it. They were sitting across the street watching looting and rioting, and did nothing. And you could tell that they wanted to.
You know, generally speaking, I don't like the government doing anything, and I don't like our government being so militarized. I've been an opponent of the militarization of the police for many years at this point. I do think that there is, and look, this could be a whole topic that we talk quite a lot about, but the riots of 2020 and things like that, I simply do not believe should be allowed to happen. And I also don't think that they're very organic in nature. I think there's big business behind a lot of these things, and
which is exactly what I told Dave when he was just recently on the show, that these were NGO funded. We pulled those NGOs up on stream. We went through. Jake Rattlesnake went to their kind of formation Zoom calls where they were explaining and expressing to people how to conduct these things. This whole thing was completely fucking orchestrated, and that's why it fizzled out. It fizzled out because Trump sent in the Marines and said, well, if you're not going to enforce the law and order, I'll send in the military, and they'll enforce law and order. And what happened? They fizzled right the fuck out, because it turns out that absent a stand-down order, the left are a bunch of fucking cowards after all, aren't they? It's real easy to loot, riot, and say that you're fucking awesome and great and blah, 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 when the cops refuse to do any sort of prosecution or arrest you because they're given these orders not to. It's a whole different thing, though, when the United States military is on the street and says, okay, if you come out here and you start looting and rioting, you're going to get thrown in a fucking paddy wagon, and that's the end of your ass.